This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon, and this one is a great thrill for me. You know, I grew up on the music of the 70s and 80s, whether it's Cheap Trick or Aerosmith or Mötley Crüe or Kiss or Ted Nugent or whoever it was. And some of my favorite records were produced by Tom Werman. And on this episode, I actually get to sit in between a conversation of Ted Nugent and Tom Werman. Now the amazing thing is, so let's see how this gets started. About a week ago, I interviewed Ted Nugent, and we talk about his guitar playing and why he should be considered one of the top 100 guitarists in the States. And we talk about the new album and the new tour and all this stuff. And somewhere during the interview, Ted says to me, what'd be really cool is if we get Tom Werman on the line and have a producer-artist discussion about the music. And I said, hey, I know Tom. I'll get Tom on the line. And I can't speak for Ted. Ted speaks perfectly well for Ted, but I got a sense of he doesn't think I'm legitimate, like in the sense of he doesn't think I'm actually going to get Tom on the line. I'm just sort of blowing smoke up his tuchus as I'm doing a show. So I said to myself, I'm going to do this. So I emailed Tom and I said, you want to come on, talk to Ted? And the answer I got back was, I'd love to do it, but we're not doing politics. No politics. And I was like, it's fine. I don't do a political show, so that's not even an issue. I mean, that's completely a non-starter. I talk to people that are musicians that have views on both sides of the spectrum, views about, how to eat, from vegan to vegetarian to don't do this, don't eat meat. I have people with all those views on the show, and that's not what I do. We talk rock and roll. We talk albums. We talk tours. We talk past history of, remember in 1975 when? That's what I do. So to get Tom on, that was easy. Just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Anyway. Now, just imagine here, this little kid, who's no longer a little kid, by the way, grew up listening to the music that these two men made. And now I'm sitting in between them. I mean, obviously all on the phone, but I'm figuratively sitting between them as they discuss making albums together. And now, only Ted and Tom could confirm this, but I got a sense that they hadn't spoken in a long time, 10 years, 15 years, and all that. Now, I could be absolutely wrong when I say that. I have no clue, and I didn't ask them. But I get a sense that they hadn't spoken in a long, long time. And that's just a perception, a feeling, whatever you want to call it. And you'll hear it at the beginning of the tape. Tom is like, Tom was like, oh, hey, this is really Ted on the phone. I thought this was a joke or something. It's like, well, no, I don't do morning zoo. I don't do comedy, though I am quite funny looking. I don't do comedy. It took a couple of seconds to convince Tom that was really Ted on the line. Now, I am going to play the entire recorded conversation, and now the show is always unedited, but at the beginning of every interview, there's usually a couple of seconds of, hey, hey Ted, how's it going? Or, hey Gene, or hey Paul, how's it going? Let me hit record here. We'll talk about the new album, the new tour, and 3, 2, 1. Hey, I'm speaking to Paul Stanley. Welcome to the show. Whatever. There's always that, and that part I take out because it's not relevant. But on this one, I'm going to play it from the moment Ted gets on the phone. Now, mind you, I can only record the call as the call happens, and I can't set the record before. So you're going to hear me cut in kind of harsh, like, hey, Ted, or, Ted, something like that. So it's not a bad edit. That's just the way, that's just the moment when the record, anyway, whatever, irrelevant detail. But I'm going to play the whole thing, and I'm going to play sort of Ted waiting on the line while I dial in and get Tom on the line. And you'll hear that initial conversation, and then you'll get right into the interview. Now, I'm going to ask you this. And head over to my socials, at Mitch Lafon on Twitter. And by the way, hey, Twitter, I'm at almost 13,000 followers with almost 4 million Twitter impressions a month, and I'm not verified. Like, what the come on. Give me a little blue mark. And I honestly don't know why that blue mark is so important, but it really is. I would get a major kick of seeing a little blue check mark by my name. So come on, Twitter. 4 million Twitter impressions per month. That's got to be worth a blue check mark. Anyway, so, hit me up on Twitter or at Mitch Lafon. So that's the Twitter, or, the or the Facebook page, the personal one, or the Rock Talk one, or even on Instagram if you want, at Mitch_Lafon. I would like to know if you could have been in my position and do an interview between two artist and producer of your time. Who would you want to sit in between and have this conversation with? Now, Ted and Tom, fantastic. Loved it. But, do you want to sit in a conversation between Lars Ulrich and Bob Rock? If you had a chance to be in my position, who would it be? Would it be, I'm trying to think, Paul Stanley and Ron Nevison from the Crazy Nights, or Bob Ezrin and Gene Simmons, or Alice Cooper and Bob Ezrin, or who would you like to sit, who would be that your wet dream, I guess, for the lack of a better word. Those were 2 words. Anyway, before we get to this, please head over to loudtracks, TRAX.com/Mitch, and pick up a beautiful Mitch t-shirt. They are absolutely glorious and dignified, and I'm telling you, you would look great. And you would look great in a Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon t-shirt, and I'm pretty sure your husband or your wife or your friends would also look delightful in a Rock Talk t-shirt. So pick them up. They are available now, shipping now, and all that wonderful stuff. And here we go. Without further ado, here is sort of like a, 13-year-old fantasy of, if I could just get Rockstar A and Producer A on the phone and sit in on a conversation, what would that be like? And I got to experience it, and I have to tell you, there's not a lot of Mitch in this episode. Ted calls in, I get Tom on the line on a 3-way call, and we're off and running. And I haven't listened back to the tape before doing this, but as far as I remember, it was about 20 minutes in, really, before I even got to say hello. So you anyway. I will also state very big thank you to Ted's people that helped set this up. Very big thank you to Ted for doing a second interview with me, literally within 4 days or whatever it was, and of course Tom, sweetheart, thank you. And do go out, folks, do go onto the Google, and I always say the Google because it's just funnier. Go onto the Google and type in Tom Werman's bed and breakfast. Look it up. It's in the Berkshires, which is, I believe, in Massachusetts. It's a tongue twister right there. It's in Mass. I've stayed there. Glorious property. You will have a great great time. And speaking of great times, here is the ones. Well, it's not the one and only. It's here are two really great people, Ted Nugent and Tom Werman. We'll get Tom on the phone. This will be exciting.
That's important. Got to get that boy on here. Celebrate this stuff.
I know. He asked that we don't talk politics, but I don't like talking politics anyway, so everybody's happy.
Poor Tommy doesn't want to be squashed by the crowbar of truth, logic, common sense, and Republican constitutionality. That's okay.
That's fine. Here we go. Let me dial him in and let's get him on the line here. All right. Let's hopefully the connection will be good. Let's see. Hello. Oh, Tom?
Hello?
Tom, we've got Ted on the line.
Ted?
Yes.
Tom, greetings. Happy summertime 2019, you old rock and roll son of a bitch. How are you?
It must be Ted.
It is Ted. The one and only Ted Nugent. There you go.
It is
well,
Ted.
Tom, you're partially responsible for my eternal musical erection, so you're going to have to deal with it. So I say grab that son of a bitch and drive it home, baby.
Okay, all right. This is definitely Ted.
Tom, number one. How are you in the family?
No, I thought it might be an
imposter. Family?
Oh, great. Thank you. I mean, really good.
Yeah, same here.
And you?
Lucky us, huh? It's so good. We carve out the perfect American dream in spite of this crazy world around us every day. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you on the phone and talk to you about the things that we love, the music that still resonates in our guts, man. So God bless you for that.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's nice to talk to you. We don't talk very much anymore, but I don't talk to too many of the people from my former life anymore.
I think, if I may, Mitch is actually the host of this, but I may just take the throttle and drive forward. But I think the most important thing is called Westwood One's Rock Talk. Here we are in 2019. I'll be 71 this year. How old are you, Tom?
You're a kid. I'll be 75.
Well, I respect my elders, but at our age, when you and I met, the music was such a powerful, overwhelming, dangerous, positive force in our lives. I think I love it more now than ever. But you're at 75, do you still cling to those grinding original rhythms that Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and the Stones and the Kinks brought back to America? Do you still love that stuff like I do?
Absolutely. I have a gym playlist. I go to the gym 3 times a week. Without my music, there is no workout. And I have Bluetooth earbuds, and I crank them, and they inspire me. Mostly, I must admit, and you may not like this, I don't know. Mostly it's ZZ Top.
Sure. How can you not? I got on stage with ZZ Top a couple months ago, and we played Jailhouse Rock, and it was, I've known those guys forever, and they do epitomize the translation of what Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry and Little Richard created, but with such a soulful black grind. They are the masters of the groove, man.
Billy's good. Billy's a good blues player. Yeah. And great chug, great rhythm guitar chug.
Why would you be suspicious that I would love ZZ Top like you love ZZ Top?
I'm not suspicious that you would love them. I was a little afraid that you would say, "What? Why do you not listen to Ted Nugent in the gym?"
No, I listen to all music. I know you listen to all music, and I bet you Stranglehold and Wang Dang Sweet Boom Tang is somewhere on that list.
Oh yeah. Stranglehold, is my. I always tell people it's my. It was the first song I ever mixed, and I also tell them that I sent it to you for your approval, and I got back. I think you called me and you said I love what you did, because it was a remix. Lou mixed the first version, and I said you said I love what you did with the guitars on Stranglehold. But
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Don't ever think of doing that again without asking me first.
Well, let's celebrate that. I talked about this at length with Mitch, but it's important after all these years. We did that back in '74, And it was when I dropped the name Amboy Dukes, and I decided, damn it, I have a musical vision that I'm gonna cling to that turns me on to the most. But what Tom is talking about is there's one note in and you got to admit, when I came out of that room and played that original guitar solo on the take one while I'm playing the rhythm track, the first thing Tom said is, "My God, there was some magic stuff there. With a little editing, it'll really be perfect." And I said, "If you edit one of those licks out, I will shoot you in the kneecap and put you in the basement." Remember that?
Well, yeah, but it was a great. It was tempting, too tempting, to make a duet out of that descending line.
Sure, bat-in. In fact, on stage, and when I did that lick, Tom, I think I exalted and just was mesmerized when I came in, because it wasn't really a dirty, noisy lead guitar tone that we usually go for. It was a real crisp Fender twin reverb that I was using for the rhythm tone. So those licks that I played on the original Stranglehold, I had never played any of those ever before, and I had to go learn it because it has such an identity. I felt to be true to that wonderful song, I had to reproduce that exact solo, which I do every night. And when it comes to that descending, illegal, I don't think God authorized those notes. That illegal descending arpeggio. I actually step on a little echo thing, so it goes that in, and harmonize with itself. So it's a sacred moment. You did great, man.
Good for you. That's great.
This, by the way, might be the easiest episode I've ever done. I haven't had a chance to say anything. Ted, this actually might be one of your podcast episodes. It might be a Ted Nugent Danger Zone podcast episode at this point.
Well, Mitch, you and I love the music. Tom loves the music. So I bet you, even though I'm the artist, I'm the guitar player, and I created these songs, I'm fascinated as a music lover. I listen to that stuff, and if that wasn't me playing that music, I'd go see the guy who did. I love that music, so I would probably, probe. I would probably probe Tom Werman and Ted Nugent the same way you would.
Yeah, right.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this, Tom, just real quick. Going into 75 and the first album, how did you sort of get the gig? Was it sort of, CBS or Epic said, okay, you're our label producer, go handle this?
No,
did you petition
okay. I didn't get the gig. Here's what happened. I didn't know what a production deal was. I went to Illinois to see Ted at IIT, or as he said when he came on stage, IIT. And I saw him. I loved him. Went backstage. We agreed on music pretty quickly. In fact, I remember when Ted said, I believe it was, "Yeah, well, I knew you got the music when you came backstage and I saw your clenched fist."
Yes.
So it appeared that a production deal was that it gave Ted's manager the right to produce the record. So I had asked Pete Townshend's lawyer if Pete might consider producing the record, and she laughed. And then, fortunately, she very nicely sent me a letter of congratulations after the album went gold. But anyway, there's Lou Futterman in the studio, and he's a nice guy, but he doesn't know that much about rock and roll, and I think I do. So I kept going into the studio, which was close by the office, so I could protect my investment, which was Ted. And I apparently made so many contributions to the album that Lou very graciously gave me co-producer credit. And then the album exploded, and abracadabra, I was a producer. And that's the way it happened.
Well, I think the most important part of that story, if I may, is that Tom was the music guy, and I always salute. I don't know how many of my interviews you hear, Tom, but I do them all the time. I do media, if not every day, every other day of my life, because I like to celebrate the things I'm passionate about, and it starts with the music. Lou Futterman, I salute because he stuck with me. But the real story here, Mitch, is that every label, everybody in the music industry turned me down, just like Pete Townshend's manager snickered. I think he was a feedback guitar player with the...
He was a lawyer. He's a lawyer.
They literally turned me down. Everybody turned me down because they didn't get the pulse of my American heartland shit-kicker music. But Tom got it because he watched the audience, and even if you didn't see the audience insanity, they loved every lick and everything I said, and the excitement and the energy and the defiance and the musical tightness of Cliff and Rob and Derek. It was literally the best of the best. And so Tom got that and fought for me, but Lou Futterman stuck with me all those years and got me this epic contract, but it really wasn't. I always, and Mitch will tell you all the interviews we've done, Tom Werman and Tony Reale were members of the band. Their ears were tuned in to the real pulse of what Chuck and Bo and Little Richard and how the Stones and the Beatles and the Kinks and the Who, how they translated the grunt of the guitar, the depth of the bass, the real drum sound of the drums, what Cliff and Rob and Derek and I produced was the quintessential sound of rock and roll. And Tom and Tony, I can't believe you didn't go deaf going out there and finding the sweet spot on all those Fender amplifiers and all the speakers. Yeah. But Mitch, the effort that Tom and Tony put into that, in the Ted Nugent, the Free For All, and the Cat Scratch, and the Double Live Gonzo, the effort they put in to keep my musical vision exactly how it sounded in the room, which is almost impossible. But you guys did it, and I've always celebrated that and given you super positive credit, because to have a team that has ears to hear the things that we love about that great rock and roll and make sure it gets on the tape, it's as borderline impossible as any production procedure there is.
Yeah. Well, the reason we could do it, the reason we were enthusiastic about it and had the energy and the commitment to do it, is that you had done most of the musical work before we walked into the studio. And I've said that every time people ask me in interviews about Ted Nugent, I say I was really not a producer at that time, but I was more quality control, because Ted had every note of every instrument in his head when we walked into the studio. And so, we'd make a suggestion now and then, but it was really about, making it sound the way Ted wanted it to sound, because, usually with most of the other bands I produced subsequently, and that was about 50 of them, 50 records, I would work hard to make musical suggestions. In Ted's case, really wasn't necessary.
Well, I had spent my whole life, playing since the 50s, not my 50s, the 1950s. I had spent my whole life honing this music that every audience, I played thousands and thousands of concerts, and when you're clean and sober and you love the music like I do, your radar picks up on the essence. I'm playing for myself. I'm very selfish. This is what I love. But I would see the audiences, and they would love what I love, because I'm a music fan. And Tom, you and Tony were able to capture that. And again, the guitar tone, I'm sure a lot of the bands you produced, I know them by name, and I know the guitar players, they have such a live, distorted, fuzzy tone that it doesn't translate on a record. And so you have to go in there and kind of re-engineer and capture a tone that's more Keith Richards than Jimi Hendrix. That's a generalization, but I think it's pretty accurate. Would you agree, Tom?
Well, yeah. Keith is not quite as precise in terms of tone or technique as I strive
that you
for.
Can capture it. Yeah.
As I strive for. I like, oh yeah. Well, there's no question that I tamper with guitar tones between the stage and the studio. But I always saw my job as one of making hit singles, getting a band on the radio so they could capture the attention of the music world, and then they could do basically what they wanted. And the deal is, when you say that you love music, you play what you love, you play for yourself. I also produced for myself and signed for myself. Because I said, boy, I love this guy. I love this Ted Nugent guy. I love Cheap Trick. I love Molly Hatchet. I love Boston. Whatever it was, when I signed them, people bought them. So that was my job.
Yeah, and you got to admit, I don't think it's ever talked about because we're talking technical stuff now, the recording process and our love for the music. But tell me, Werman, I mean, I really have a genuine question. Did you have as much fun with any other band as you did with us?
No, I came close with Cheap Trick. I came close with Cheap Trick, but
great guys.
You know, but no, especially in the later years, we won't mention any names, you know, because I just wasn't going to take it, so to speak.
Yes,
So we, you know, I really, it wasn't, a lot of that was not fun and quite challenging. We did have fun. Absolutely. I remember the night when after the session, you and I went over to Alex Cooley's Electric Ballroom, and Ronnie Van Zant was sprawled on a table unconscious, and you said, watch this. And you leapt over a few tables, and you went over and you grabbed him by the shoulders, and you started shaking him violently and said, "Hey, Ronnie, how you doing, man? What's up, Ronnie?" he was like,
you know,
unconscious, wasted.
If you find somebody who's comfortably numb, they can be a prop for a good time.
That's right. Anyway, it was fun in Atlanta, and we made those records quickly and cheaply.
Yeah, and because we were already tuned in, we weren't going in going, geez, I wonder what kind of songs we should play, because I'm always writing songs, and I love this. I love the way I express myself, and my lyrics obviously were politically incorrect before there was political incorrectness, but I had such a passion for it, and Rob, I mean, my God, what a bass player, and Cliff, what a drummer, and Derek, what a great, great musician and singer. So we really had a finely tuned machine that delivered the music that we loved night after night after night. So it was just a matter of a slight tweak of sonics to make sure that the tape could accept what we were playing, because I played so... Remember, I would come in with all my Fender Twins and Dual Showman bottoms, and there was just no way to capture some of those sounds.
No.
Well, Tom, let me ask you this. As a producer, did you have a lot of bands that came in just completely unprepared, no songs, nothing rehearsed, and just said, all right, we're here, let's get started? I mean, did that happen? No. Okay.
No. You know, I made sure that we rehearsed and rearranged everything basic, the basics, drums, bass, rhythm guitar, and then, you know, we'd record it in rehearsal on a boombox, and then we'd take the boombox into the studio and refer to it. So the songs were there. With Cheap Trick, frequently Rick would come in with fragments of songs, like, and we would take a verse from one song and maybe a chorus from another song and actually put them together and make a real song. But certainly with debut albums, the bands are very together. Probably Mötley was the least prepared, and
I can imagine.
As humans, they were least prepared. They kind of played it by ear, so to speak.
When they delved into the human area. Great band, though. Great band. You have to admit, Tommy Lee, one of the greatest drummers that ever lived, no doubt. And they made some great songs,
Tommy
man.
And Bunny and Tommy. I was really lucky to work with those two drummers.
Yeah, Bunny's like Ringo Starr, wasn't he?
He was. He was great for as much for what he did not play as for what he did play. He was spare.
Groove and rhythm, baby. Yeah.
And
yeah, good stuff though, man. But Tom, I know I've done it a number of times, but I can't do it often enough, and that is to thank you for sticking with me in that era when the industry was turning me down, and you saw the authority of the music that we were creating, that you captured it like you did. So it was a great time in my life.
No question. There was no question. As soon as I saw you play, that band play at IIT, I said, wow, we can do something here. We can really do something, because I wasn't dying to see, Ted Nugent. I didn't really know much about the Amboy Dukes. So I went in there, willing, because Lou came into the office and said, "Hey, guess what? Ted Nugent's available." And I said, "Well, I know Journey to the Center of Your Mind, but I don't know too much about Ted." So IIT was eye and ear opening, and then the Lansing, Michigan Ice Arena.
Sure.
That's when I brought Popovich. I brought Popovich to that show
with
opening with Aerosmith, and Krebs was there, and that's when I said, there's a real big audience for this guy because the people came in, they all were wearing motorcycle boots and denim head to toe, long shaggy hair. And you could tell they ended a really tough work week and wanted to blow their brains out. And Ted enabled them to do that.
Let me ask you this, Tom.
Here it is, 2019. I will hit the road in July, and I'll tour 6 weeks, do 6 nights a week. And I still play songs from the Amboy Dukes. Hell, I'll still play some Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley stuff. But I play all those classics, and I'm telling you, every night we get ready to go on stage, we play the Stones' Street Fighting Man before we go on. And I'm like a horny kid in the garage with my first amplifier. I can't wait to get out there and unleash these damn songs. And even though I probably shouldn't expose it, when we go on the road this year for the first time since about 74, we're going to open up with Stranglehold and just play nothing but monster songs all night long.
So let me ask you about this.
People are still listening. People are still listening to the music of that decade.
It's a great decade. But Tom, you said that your goal was to get singles and to get stuff on the radio.
Right.
And the first song on the first album is, of course, Stranglehold at 8.5 minutes. Was there any pressure on you to cut it down to a 4-minute radio single? Did you come in and go, really, 8 minutes? I mean, what was sort of your... No, okay.
Not at the time. Although Hey Baby was, more of an obvious choice for a single. It wasn't, Stranglehold was complex. It was really complex. It was threatening. It wasn't, hey baby, take a ride in my car. Here we go. We're going to rock all night long. It was quite different in its sound and its message. But at that point, AM and FM were just really separating. FM radio had just started, and it was strictly album play. Strictly. So business, commercially speaking, if you had a really good album that played a lot on FM radio, you could probably sell maybe 400,000 records. If you had a hit single that was simultaneously played on AM radio, exclusively almost, you could sell 3 million albums. So it became evident that we needed hit singles. And you can see what happened with Cat Scratch Fever. When I saw that, I don't know where that was, maybe Atlanta. I saw it for the first time. Right after the show, I went and called my boss, Steve Popovich, and I said, "Hey, Ted's finally written a big hit single," and I was right. So
great song, man. I love playing that lick.
So, yes, it's what every single guitar player after you made that song, every single guitar player, lead or acoustic or rhythm, that I worked with would go in the studio, sit down, and play that lick and laugh. And I said, "You are not the first to do that."
Yeah. Well, basically, it's an extension of the original honky tonk. Right. And you hear that lick and "Let's Spend the Night Together" or "Satisfaction."
Yeah.
And I just added a Detroit, multiple guitar tone, multiple strings to it instead of just the 2-note honky tonk. But there's that lick. Right. If you really listen, it's in millions and millions of songs. I just play it in a down and dirty way.
Yeah. And you've redone it on your new album as Backstrap Fever, right?
Backstrap Fever. Actually, it was originally written for a golf course. They had a beaver problem. They were flooding all the greens, and but you weren't allowed to trap them, so I wrote a song called "Can't Trap Beaver."
Not really. I don't know that. That's like
but around the campfire.
Yeah.
But around the campfire, all these years, I do a lot of charity work with military and law enforcement and terminally ill kids. And there's always a campfire time with an acoustic guitar, and I play this song called Fred Bear that has just become an anthem for people all around the world. And when I play the Fred Bear song, I'll also whip out, they all want to hear Cat Scratch Fever, and on an acoustic guitar, we just start singing Backstrap Fever, because the backstrap is that sacred morsel of flesh along the upper spine of herbivores that I kill every year to feed my friends. And so Backstrap Fever becomes like an anthem at my campfires every year.
I haven't heard it.
Well, you're going to have to hear it. The new album, The Music Made Me Do It, is fantastic. I mean, it's solid. It's a solid album. You should definitely check that out. Let me ask you this quickly, though, on the production side. Free for All, Cat Scratch Fever, there's always three producers mentioned. There's you and Lou, and then Cliff Davies, who also played drums. How did you sort of separate the production credits, or how were these production credits, and how did you come up with them, or what was sort of everybody's responsibilities?
Well, it certainly wasn't my decision. I think Lou did that, and Ted. Maybe, Cliff, was the chief. Beside Ted, of the other three, he was the most contributory in terms of musical ideas, and I think he sat
Cliff
in on
was
the
a trained
mixes.
musician. He was a jazz musician with the English band If, and he was such a virtuoso. He could play anything, and his timing was impeccable. He latched on to the grooves that I created when I opened a song with a signature lick,
right?
And he was able to become a samurai with my pulse of my songs. And so Tom can tell you that I didn't have a whole lot of patience. I recorded the damn song, and I would put down either the rough vocal or do my lead vocal, and I'd play my guitar solos, which was always just a sonic orgy of musical adventure. I just loved doing that. I still love doing that. But I would leave the control in Cliff's hands, and certainly Tom's hands, because Lou didn't have the ear or the total understanding of the outrageous elements of my music, and you wanted it noisy, you wanted the drums noisy, you wanted the clang, you wanted that ambient sound somehow that we had in the room or on stage. You wanted to do your damnedest to reproduce that. And Cliff was a technician as well as a spiritual drummer, so I would leave some of the technical chores in his hands, and he would tweak some of the sounds and the frequencies, because I just didn't have the patience to do that. But I got to tell you, the more that Tom relegated authority to others is when the essence of my musical sound vision started to be compromised somewhat. I'm not blaming Cliff, God rest his soul. He was one of the greatest musicians, a great gentleman, a work ethic, a Herculean dedicated band member. I have nothing negative to say about any of those guys. But Tom was the guy that when you tried to add a little bass or a little bottom or a little top to something, I always relied on Tom to go, no, don't change that. No, maybe a little mids, but don't mess with that. And that is so subjective. And Cliff would do his very best to represent my frequency preferences along with Tom, because I just didn't have the patience to stay in the studio that long.
Yeah, it's true. And Lou has fancied himself more of a vocal specialist.
Good grief.
He did.
I know it. I know it.
Yeah.
But you're the guy who got the performances from Derek, and the reason we had Meat Loaf come in on Free For All is because Lou could not get a performance out of Derek, and it took you and Cliff to do that.
Well, the real reason was that along with that was that Derek spent the night in jail. and Lou lost patience. He said, "God damn it, I will not put up with this. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Do you know anybody who could sit in for?" And I said, "Well, I know this really thunderous vocalist in New York, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's certainly up to the task. I don't know if he's compatible
Plus, he was an old friend of mine. Meat Loaf and I went way back,
Yeah. Yeah, so he was on a plane the next day, and there he was. And nobody seems to notice, maybe there are no credits to read on the back of the album sleeve anymore. But very few people noticed that Meat Loaf made an appearance on a Ted Nugent album. That is like, oil and water in a way.
Yeah, Writing on the Wall, Street Rats, he sang Together. He sang some brilliant stuff. In fact, we're doing Writing on the Wall. We're doing a medley of Street Rats and Death by Misadventure. And some of the songs that Meat Loaf sang, we do those on stage because the licks are so damn powerful and fun to play. We're doing a whole bunch of those.
Yeah, well,
he did five songs on Free for All, right?
Yeah.
Say again?
4 or 5. 4 or 5, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and he did them quickly. But, I mean, Derek was great, but he was just a little behaviorally challenged at the time. And, I really
and it got worse. But anyhow, was I the easiest guy to get a vocal performance out of or what?
Well, yes. Oh, sure. Because
how about Motor City Madhouse? What a vocal that is, huh?
Attitude. It's attitude.
All attitude.
A lot of attitude.
Yeah, I invented attitude. A lot of people don't know that.
Possibly. Let me ask you this, Tom and Ted. Double live Gonzo, because we have spoken about how you saw Ted live and you went, I got to work with this guy. And listen, I saw Ted back in 79 or 80, I guess it was, coming through Montreal. Actually, it ended up on that Intensities album.
Intensity is one of the great titles of all time.
Yeah.
Intensities in 10 cities.
But let's talk to me about this double live Gonzo, because Peter Frampton and Kiss had the Alive albums, and so everybody was doing these live things. Were you? Yeah. What was that like going into there? Because that Ted on stage delivers, but it's certainly a very different thing to deliver it on vinyl. How did you go about getting that performance and getting those different shows culled together and saying, okay, we're going to do a live album. How do we make it, as if we were at a concert? Well,
we were at a concert. I got to say that you take certain liberties. Every band took certain liberties with live albums in those days, and you would repair this and repair that, and occasionally you would, but you'd borrow one audience from one show and put them, in another show, or add them to the audience from another show. They were all Ted Nugent audiences, but we didn't like there was one with too many firecrackers and too many whistles, and we would I would not. Ted didn't suggest this, but I'd combine two audiences and I'd say, give me some of that whistle.
Well, I think
audience.
the very best part of Double Live Gonzo, certainly I'm proud of that. I love the whole record. It's just outrageous. But one of my favorites is we had a technical problem on the performance from San Antonio of Baby Please Don't Go. Rob's bass had some kind of glitch in it. Yeah. So I went in the studio and I overdubbed and redid the whole bass line, and then I overdubbed some of the vocal stuff. And my favorite part, and if you go to my Ted Nugent Facebook, people are always referencing that at the end of Baby Please Don't Go on Double Live Gonzo at San Antonio. The original vocal is there. It goes, San Antonio! San Antonio! And when I overdubbed, I went, suck my
bonio! We've been quoting that in this house for a long time. It was very funny. And then actually on one song, I don't think it was on the live album, maybe it was. Derek utters a phrase at the end of one song.
That was Stranglehold. That is crystal clear. And when I pointed out to people, when I did the rough vocal to show them where I wanted the cadence and the basic melody and how I sang those lyrics, that love song Stranglehold. At the end of it, just before the big A chord, when I'm doing the re-intro for the crescendo at the end, I said a certain phrase, a certain street slang, and I actually said it. And then when Derek actually sang the song, he repeated it. And at the end, it's dot, come on. And if you listen closely, there's no question what the dot is. And it's I still say it on stage every night. But that's, there's an outrageous uninhibitedness in the studio when nothing is sacred. And I'll quote Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce and anybody I damn please. And so at the end of Stranglehold, in the original recorded studio version on my solo album at 75, if you listen, it is unambiguous what Derek repeats of what I did when I was being a smart ass on the rough track. And when I point it out to people, they go, I can't believe I've never heard that. It's so obvious what he's saying.
It is. It has to be pointed out.
I'm going to have to go
listen, Mitch.
I'm going to go check that out
closely. But if you listen, it's not ambiguous what he said.
Oh, I've got to go listen to that. Just real quick on after Weekend Warriors. So you do these 5 albums together, Tom.
Yeah.
You don't work on the next one, State of Shock. What happened at that point where the relationship after 5 albums, you moved on? Was it just because Cheap Trick and other bands were taking so much time? Was it, I've said and done everything I can do with Ted? What sort of like, okay, I'm not going to do State of Shock. Lou does, but you said, all right, it's not me.
Yeah, it may have been a scheduling thing. It may have been, I've done as much as I can for Ted.
And God knows we missed you.
Well, thanks. It's a long time. It's been a long time, and I'm not sure exactly what it was. But, in terms of producing careers, 5 albums, if you're not talking about George Martin, is a long run. It really is, and it takes you over a span of artistic growth and change. I think 5 albums, I think it was as good for Ted as it was for me. That
absolutely, a great run. You betcha.
That he changed producers, and nobody works forever. I worked longer with Ted than I worked with anybody, and I made over 50 albums. So,
and you did come back. You did come back in '88 for If You Can't Lick 'Em, which of course includes Pat Torpey, God rest his soul, and Dave Amato. Yeah, Dave Amato, who's my interview right after you two today. So should have had him on this call. Yeah. Talking about
If You Can't Lick 'Em, another fabulous title, and a phrase I heard from Ted that I've always loved, which is women. You can't live with them. You can't live with them.
Yeah. But you keep trying anyway.
That's funny. But talk to me about If You Can't Lick 'Em, because here it is 10 years after. In terms of your production style, had you changed quite a bit, having gone through the Mötley stuff and all that? And what was sort of that reunion like? Was it about getting MTV singles? Was it about bringing back Ted's original sound? Well, talk to me a little bit about that album.
I have to tell you, in all sincerity, I don't remember very much at all. But I was probably considering that I could be a little more use to the project than I was in the beginning. But I was really lucky to have fallen in with Ted, and had the opportunity to work with him, because it saved me from making a lot of crappy albums in the beginning of my producing career and having to work up. I mean, I got grade A artistry right away, and when you make a record and it explodes like that record did, you look good. So
you really do.
I was really lucky. Yeah.
I'll ask you this.
I have to comment on that era. I think the organic rawness, the absolute primal scream of what we celebrated when Tom and I first connected. We were younger. There was an element of defiance that the industry didn't like what I was doing, but we did. Tom did, the band did, Lou did, Tony Reale was key at the point, because we all loved this kind of music, this rhythm and blues, raw, unafraid, grinding, and very tight performances of music that we love. But by the time we got to Lick 'Em, I think we were all, and I plead weakness. I fell for the BS that technology could be your friend in getting a guitar tone or getting a drum tone, instead of just getting the tones we believed in and capturing them. We were going to digital. We were getting, reproduce. You could get, I don't even know what the terms are because I hate the technology so much. We can program John Bonham's snare sound every time he hits a snare. Well, it doesn't really come off that way. You got to be John Bonham to get John Bonham's sound. You got to be Cliff Davies and Torpy to get Torpy's sound. And I think Tom and I both fell to some degree victim to technology. Instead of going for the grunt and the grind of a garage band honesty, I think we played around with a little too much technology at that point.
Could be.
And the final product didn't have that edgy, organic drum bass guitar sound that a drum bass and guitar player would produce. And technology, I think, compromised that.
In the same room. And also, when we made the first album, when we made Ted Nugent with Stranglehold on it, there were three things you could do to the sound after you had recorded it. Three. There were three pieces of outboard gear. There was a digital delay, there was echo chamber, and there was a phaser, and that was it. There was, there was literally no other way to modify or affect the sound of the album. That was it.
But then by Lick 'Em, by the time we were doing, if you can't lick 'em, I mean, there was unlimited things you could do. And I think, like a guitar player with his first wah-wah pedal, he's going to use it more than he should. I think when we got in the studio, there were so many options that we were a bit too adventurous. And I love adventure. I love destroying status quo paradigms, and I love doing things that have never been done before. But some things are so pure, like a killer guitar tone, killer bass, killer drums, and a raw, throaty, soulful vocal, that when you start adding a lot of technology to it, it pussifies it. I really believe that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Let me ask you this,
that's
Ted.
one of the reasons why with total technology, with all except for parts of the vocal, today's music leaves so much to be desired.
Yeah. Tom, I got to get you a copy. I got to get you a copy of my new "The Music Made Me Do It," because the title track, "Where You're Going to Run to Get Away from Yourself," "Big Fun Dirty Groove Noise," some of these songs are just like the Ted Nugent that you met in 1974, because I still have a rawness and a craving for those original, gods and thunder, the Chuck Berrys and the Bo Diddleys and the Howlin' Wolf, and what the Stones and the Kinks and the Beatles did to that music, and what we did to that music, that I think you'd really, really like this new record. I'm very, very
I bet I will. I will. I don't listen to much new music these days, I can tell you that.
But
this one's got the attitude, doesn't it, Mitch?
Oh, it does. It really is great. But I'm gonna. I guess we'll start wrapping up on this. But Ted, the simple question is, how important was Tom Werman to your career?
Well, I've always said it was critical, because I am not a detail guy. I'm a real raw, spontaneous, knee-jerk kind of guy, and that's why my guitar tone is so raw and knee-jerk. It's a Gibson through an amp with the old technology of the original Gibson pickups through an old Fender amp, and I am so primal that I don't stick around to scrutinize stuff. Basically, I'm sure I said this over and over to Tom and Tony. I go, well, that's the tone I've got. No, goddamn it, get it on tape. It is not that easy, because what I'm hearing is, 12 12-inch speakers and 24 15-inch speakers. And there's no microphone that can capture that. No. But that's the magic of what Tom and Tony did. They found where that sweet spot was, because a mic can only get an inch. A mic can only listen to an inch. Now, we did a lot of room mics, and that did capture, like the solo on Just What the Doctor Ordered. What a great, great gig song that was. We still play that song.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I said it when I started this dialogue with you guys. Actually, it's a trialogue. That Tom was a member of the band. Tom's love of my music was as if he was a band member. And Tony Rally, don't forget that name. Tony loved the raw, unabashed, unapologetic, uninhibitedness of my songs and the way we delivered them and the way we played them. And they did take the time. I'd perform, and then I'd go and have lunch, or I'd go out in the parking lot and shoot my bow and arrow. I played the song. I'm done.
I think you shot it in the studio. I think your bow and arrow.
And in the parking lot.
It was in the studio. The parking lot was, I think, at Conway, but the studio definitely with the deer. Yeah,
that's right. I had a deer target in the studio shooting my bow and arrow.
A target
because
deer.
The mystical flight of the arrow helps you play killer guitar.
That's great. And Tom, I'm going to ask you this. Similarly, how important was Ted to your career? Because when bands and labels come to you and say, well, he produced that song Stranglehold and Cat Scratch Fever, this guy's doing something right. How important was Ted to you?
Well, as I just said, I was lucky to be involved and attached. Because it made me look very good very quickly, and we made, album after album. And so, not only did I have a chance to be associated with a big hit artist and album, but to prove subsequently that it wasn't a fluke. So, of course, I'm grateful to Ted, and I'm really proud, that I was smart enough to say, this guy has to make albums quickly, And
let me put it in this term. We're old. Tom's 75. I'll be 71. We've been down that road. Our water has gone under many, many bridges. The connection, the friendship. I use the term blood brother. My music is so important to me that the people who celebrate it with me show great respect for it and put their heart and soul into making recommendations that are organic to my musical vision. I use the Aboriginal term blood brothers, and I don't use that for everybody, but I use it for people who I can rely on, who are friends, who will be there for me. And I got to tell you, I've made some great friends, lifetime friends in this industry. And Tom and I were kindred souls. We believed in the freedom to make this kind of music. It was a defiant music. It was an outrageous, paradigm-destroying music. It still is to this day. So that we both went on this adventure together, I think qualifies us as American dream musical blood brothers. And Tom, I've always considered you someone, not just a business partner, but someone who really believes in this music that is my soul. It is me. I am that music. And so I appreciate that friendship very much.
I'm honored and happy that you feel that way, and to underscore Ted's sincerity and the validity of what he's just said. He knows I'm a registered Democrat. And that
doesn't matter.
Here comes the politics.
And he still bridges all gaps. He still bridged that gap.
But you know what? That's the great thing about music. It crosses all the boundaries that we impose on ourselves of Democrat, Republican, and this and that.
Right.
And that's the beauty of music, is that it wipes that away and it effaces it and just makes us be fans. And that's the greatest gift of all. It really is.
And we both, I know, appreciate the freedom under which we operate in this country.
That's right. Absolutely. That's what it is.
I
have a lot of friends. A lot of people think that a lot of people make just nasty, nasty allegations against me. The things they say about me are just hateful and dishonest.
Called misinterpretation. A lot of it's misinterpretation.
Well, how about the fact that they actually put they put quotation marks around things that never left my mouth. They attribute nastiness that I've never said in my life. And so I know that a blood brother, I know that a person of honesty and goodwill and decency sees the dishonesty of the media and the fake news and the political correctness and the hate that exists out there. And I have friends, whether it's Tom Morello, who's a hardcore liberal, or Wayne Kramer from the MC5. He's a hardcore liberal guy. We're still blood brothers. We're still musical comrades, and I think that's an important point to make.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is, and now we'll leave it alone.
Right. And I have to say, I experienced the hate. I did an interview with Ted last week, and my inbox of how dare you give him a platform? You're a horrible person. I got a whole bunch of that, and I was like, really?
Yeah,
but we didn't talk politics. We just talked rock and roll. I mean, what the, anyway, whatever.
People forget about, freedom of speech and what the Founding Fathers actually meant for us to do in terms of behavior and freedom. And they get pissed, and they.
Well, all I can say is it's 2019, and I'm having the time of my life. I'm going to have the greatest hunting season of my life. I'm going to have the greatest tour of my life, and my middle fingers are both on fire. And my freedom flag, freak flag, flies every day, nonstop.
Yeah, and of course,
great to talk to both of you, and I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Yeah, I will have it up by the end of the week, and I'll remind folks that Ted has the Ted Nugent Danger Zone with Tim Wells, a podcast for folks to check out. And I don't normally promote other podcasts on my show, but for Ted, anything. And wasn't this fun?
And I'll promote yours, Mitch. Truth, logic, and common sense, goodwill, decency, positive energy, and real tolerance for positive energy is what we both stand for. So thank you for that. And people come to my Facebook. Tom, if you want to continue the guffaw, the belly-aching laughter that we've always experienced together, go to my Facebook. The people on my Facebook are some funny rock and roll maniacs, and we have a great, great time there.
Good.
Yeah,
okay, and I hope you'll both promote when my book comes out.
Yes.
I hope you'll both promote that.
Absolutely.
You let me know about it, man. I'll run it up the flagpole on my Facebook. I have like almost 4 million Facebookers. Before the 2016 election, I had between 20 and 30. I had between 20 million and 36 million Facebookers.
Fantastic.
Well, wasn't this a fun family reunion? This was great.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
absolutely
always
fun.
welcome an opportunity to talk with Tedley, as I used to call him.
Good stuff, guys. Godspeed. God bless you and your families. Have the greatest summer of your life. And once again, Tom, thanks for being such a positive force in my musical dream. And back to you, Mitch. Thank you very much for helping me celebrate this stuff.
Yes, and absolutely. And as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much to both of you. And this was great. Bonsoir. Good night. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Godspeed.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.